Welcome, everybody. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you so much for being here. This is Spirit Matters, your spiritual check-in with the Bhakti Center. And this is Dal Guranga. I'm flying solo today. We've been having the wonderful Brajarani with us this week, but she's not able to join us this morning. But if you're just tuning in for the first time this week, please go back and listen to Monday and Tuesday's episode this week. And she'll be back tomorrow and the next day. She's been enlightening us in a beautiful way, and we've been sharing a lot about the idea of, for me, self-compassion came up a lot in that conversation. And I've really been meditating on this idea of how the stories that we read in Vedic literatures, and Rajarani mentioned this idea yesterday about sometimes we think of mentors and teachers in our lives that we go to for things, whether we go to personally because we have a personal relationship with somebody, or we just look up to them from afar. You know, we follow them on Instagram, or we listen to their classes, or we read their books, or whatever it may be. And when we think about the struggles that we experience on a daily basis, it can sometimes feel like I don't have anywhere to go with them because the people that I look up to wouldn't be able to relate to the struggles that I'm experiencing because I'm so low and they're so high. Anybody ever feel that? And then we think about, and then we end up just kind of keeping things to ourselves, or we judge ourselves, and then we struggle alone, because we're not just always looking for like answers and solutions, but we're looking for somebody to empathize with what we're going to. And what she experienced, which was very beautiful, is that when she approached various mentors and teachers and people that she looks up to in spiritual life and guru figures, that across the board, people could relate. And that what makes an advanced person advanced is not that they have a clean record of never stumbling, never struggling, never having a shortcoming, but it's that the way that we choose to move through those shortcomings and grow through them is what gives us faith and realization and empowerment. And so when I look at the stories in Vedic literature, sometimes you read, and it can be off-putting to think of these great illustrious souls who seem like, yeah, that's good for them for being so pure and focused in so many ways. But actually what we find is the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, Vedic literatures are stories of people who are working through their imperfections. It's a struggle. It's a story of people struggling through their imperfections. And in many ways, it's a story of what we think as failure. And so the story of the Bhagavad Gita itself is a story of Arjuna experiencing weakness, experiencing doubt, experiencing uncertainty, experiencing fear, anxiety, confusion, multiple times throughout the Gita, where he's unclear about what Krishna's saying, what to do, and he's bringing up his doubts. Even at a certain point in the Gita, he asks the question, this will be at the end of the 6th chapter, he asks the question of, what happens if I try all these things you're telling me to do, but I don't quite make it? He says, what happens for somebody who gives up material life to pursue spiritual life, but doesn't quite make it to the promised land in this life? Do I just end up with nothing? I gave up my spiritual material goals. I didn't achieve my spiritual goals. And where does that leave me? And so Krishna is reassuring us, and what we find and what we've been talking about with Brajarani this week is the idea of not shooting all over ourselves and being able to set the judge aside and be able to start to extend ourselves a certain level of self-compassion. A certain level of self-compassion. And what we find in the Gita, and I've been thinking of some verses that I wanted to look at and share. Where we are in the Gita right now, we're in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And the last verse that we read was verse 22. So we're on verse 423. So I wanted to read this verse of the Gita and connect it to what we've been discussing with Brajarani about the idea of working through our struggles, the idea of extending ourselves a little bit of self-compassion, not judging ourselves so harshly, and maybe potentially redefining how we look at the things that are happening in our life. That when there's a struggle, rather than see it as a failure, I can start to see it as a stepping stone towards my growth. and I could not judge myself so harshly as I move through my struggles in spiritual life, which we're all going to experience. So, in verse 23 of the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks. He's speaking to Arjuna, and he's speaking about the nature of karma. He's speaking about the nature of action. He's speaking about the nature of attachment and detachment. And it's interesting in the context of what we've been discussing with Vajrayani is that much of my own suffering, much of my own uh, uh, struggle is very much related to the idea of attachment, and not necessarily attachment to like physical things, like I'm attached to my house or I'm attached to my, whatever it might be, my physical possessions, but attached to reputations, attached to ideas of ourselves. How many of us get so attached to a certain idea of ourselves that when life cracks that, when something happens that goes against that idea of ourself that we become attached to, I feel insecure. I feel ashamed. I feel shame. I feel guilt. I feel embarrassment. I want to isolate and I want to hide from the world. Not just simply because I've become attached to a certain idea of what I think I'm supposed to be, what spiritual life is supposed to look like. And she gave us this list of all these spiritual to-dos that we sometimes have. Like, you have to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And it gets long and it gets exhaustive. And it's just like, and we get this conception, unless I do all of these things perfectly every day, I'm not a good yogi. I'm not a good devotee. I'm not a good person. And it becomes pressure. And we judge ourselves, and we can judge other people in the same way too. And so Krishna's talking about the nature of detachment, letting those things go. Krishna's talking about the nature of action, how to act in this world from a place of detachment. How do I act in this world from a place of detachment? I take myself out of the center. I take myself out of the center and I make it not about me. Who do I make it about? Krishna's saying, make it about me. Krishna's saying, make it about that supreme best friend. Make it about that higher power that we all have a divine connection to. And so Krishna speaks to Arjuna in the fourth chapter, verse 23. The work of a person who is unattached to the modes of material nature. So there's our word detachment. Work of a person who is unattached and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. I'm going to read that verse again, and then we're going to look at the commentary, because I think Srila Prabhupada's commentary unpacks a lot of what's going on here. The work of a person who is unattached to the modes of material nature. So I'm working, I'm engaging, I'm not giving up on life. I'm still committing to showing up every day, but I'm unattached to the modes of material nature. And I'm fully situated in transcendental knowledge. Means that when there's a story in my mind that tells me something negative, which is judging me and judging other people, telling me I'm unworthy, telling them that they're unworthy because they didn't hit the mark today, whatever it may be. I didn't check all the spiritual to-dos off my list, and it's judging me, and it's telling me God doesn't love me. It's telling me I'm not worthy of love. It's telling me other people aren't worthy of love. It's telling me I'm never going to make it. I don't belong here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I actually rise above that into transcendental knowledge. I have a higher wisdom. I have a higher wisdom that I refer back to. And I pause and I'm like, and maybe I need to take a moment of presence. Maybe you need to learn a few exercises just to bring yourself. I'm in a negative mindset. Maybe the action of going from a negative mindset to a positive mindset is too big of a jump. So I go from a negative mindset to a neutral mindset. And I just practice a little bit of presence. And Brajarani was sharing that a little bit yesterday also, which is really beautiful, about going up here in the head to just in presence of like, can I feel myself sitting on the seat? Can I feel my feet on the ground? Maybe I just rub my fingers together and just feel with such great attention just the ridges on my fingertips. Or I just listen to the sound of my breath. Can I tune out everything and just listen attentively to the sound of my own breathing? And just take 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 1-2 minutes of presence to bring myself out of a negative mindset into a neutral mindset of just presence. I'm not judging. I'm just here. I'm just observing. I'm just present where I am right now. And then from that place, that can be the launching pad into a higher wisdom that we all have access to. We all know better. We all know that those stories aren't true. It's just that we tell ourselves those negative stories so often, and it's so loud, it just overwhelms and overrides the system. And so one who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge, what is that transcendental knowledge? Everything Krishna has been telling us so far. You're an eternal spirit soul. You're connected to a divine, loving, higher power. That divine, loving power is calling you back. The Bhagavad Gita means the song of God. God is singing his song and calling you back. And we can reciprocate with that call in this very life through our daily activities. How? By just connecting them through our consciousness and being aware of him in our daily activities. He says then, one who is situated fully in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. That's what it means to be spiritual. And you don't need to fly to a mountaintop in the Himalayas, although you can do that. And I've done that. I mean, I haven't been on a mountaintop, but I've been in the foothills of the Himalayas in Rishikesh, and I've gone to sacred places in India. Been to India twice this year already. And it's beautiful, powerful experiences. And we get those spiritual recharges. But you don't have to necessarily even go anywhere or change anywhere about your life in order to enter into spiritual consciousness. You can do it right here, right now. Just changing the way in which you approach things. So, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the commentary, becoming fully Krishna conscious. That's what this is about. Becoming fully Krishna conscious. What is that? Conscious of Krishna. Conscious of God's presence in my life. Conscious of my eternal connection to God. Conscious of my eternal being as a spirit soul, not as a businessman or a businesswoman or as a teacher in this world or as a mother or a father in this world or as the good listener, as the funny one, or as a influencer or as a, California punk kid or as a, Florida golden girl or as a mountain trekker, all the identities that we put onto ourselves, that I'm actually more and beyond all of that. To become fully Krishna conscious. One is freed from all dualities and thus is free from the contaminations of the material modes. One is free from all dualities. Somebody was once, it was so beautiful. They were talking about how pride and self-loathing are flip sides of the same coin. And humility and confidence are flip sides of the same coin. Because when I'm humble, I recognize that it's not about me and it's not me doing anything, but it's actually God working through me and working through everybody. And I become confident that God can do anything and God could use me for anything. I just have to let go of the idea that God's supposed to use me in a specific way. Sometimes we use surrender as a tool to get what we want. I surrendered, so why didn't everything work out? I surrendered, so why didn't God just kind of like align with my plans? But to actually surrender and let go of the way I think God is meant to use me, and to start to notice the small things in life that we overlook. I remember when I was in high school, I wanted to go and travel overseas and work with some nonprofit organization to build homes for people in need. And part of it stemmed from a desire to want to help people. And part of it was just like, it sounded romantic and cool. And that's what I thought it meant, to be like a servant of society. And my parents said no, because they didn't want to fund it. And I was so mad at them. And I went to my friend for like empathy. And he was like, I kind of agree with them. And I was like, what? And you don't need to fly across the world to find someone in need. It's there, yes. But there are people probably just down the street from you that are in need of some love and kindness and care and attention. If you find yourself in a situation to fly across the world and help people in need that are, then that's good. And there are organizations and there are people that do that. But don't think that your service to God needs to look a particular way. Sometimes we think my service needs to look sexy in a particular way, or romantic or in a particular way, or epic in a particular way. But sometimes it's actually real, real simple. It's just being a good mom, being a good dad, being a good brother or sister, being a good partner, being a good friend to somebody, being a good big brother or sister, whether you're a biological big brother or sister or a mentor or a guide or a teacher to somebody. Just being a good example for others. We can serve in profound and deep ways wherever we are. We just have to surrender to the idea that I don't have to make it look a certain way. And so becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is freed from all the dualities of pride and self-loathing. Because when I'm self-loathing, when I'm pride, I think I'm so great. When I'm self-loathing, I think I'm not great. And therefore, I think I'm terrible. But it's still measured on some duality of material greatness or not greatness. And they're still centering around me and what I think about myself. One is freed from all dualities and thus is free from the contaminations of the material modes. Prabhupada goes on. They become liberated. Liberated from what? Liberated from all of that negative thinking. Because they know their constitutional position in relationship with Krishna. There's the humility and confidence. There's the identity of being fully Krishna conscious means understanding myself in relationship with Krishna. And thus the mind cannot be drawn from Krishna consciousness. Consequently, whatever they do, whatever that person does, they do it for Krishna, who's the primeval Vishnu. Therefore, all their works are technically sacrifices, because sacrifice aims at satisfying the supreme person, Vishnu. What am I sacrificing? I'm sacrificing all my old ways of thinking. Sacrificing my old ways of thinking. I'm sacrificing the urge to go down that rabbit hole. I'm sacrificing the urge to put myself in the center. I'm sacrificing the urge to make it all about me. And I'm willing to make it all about Krishna. Last line of the purport. The resultant reactions to all such work certainly merge into transcendence, and one does not suffer material effects. In the second chapter of the Gita, very, very early on, Krishna tells Arjuna that happiness and distress are like the winter and summer seasons, which if you're out there in Florida, some of you, or in California, you're like, winter's great. But if you're out here in New York, or someone, I think Rinny's out there in Canada, you get a sense of what the winter's like. It's cold. There's snow. You can't go for your morning walks. Or you can, but you got to bundle up like a tundra. So he talks about winter and summer seasons. They come and they go. And you know that when summer comes, it's going to be here for a little while, and winter's around the corner. When winter comes, summer's around the corner. You can't control it. And similarly, happiness and distress are going to come into your life. So right off the bat, when he mentions that we're an eternal spirit soul, he says, once you realize your spirit soul, it doesn't mean that happiness and distress just eliminate from your life. He says, you got to learn to tolerate it without being too disturbed. You got to learn to tolerate it without being too disturbed. And so when Srila Prabhupada ends his purport here by saying one does not suffer material effects, he doesn't mean that inconveniences and discomforts and pains don't come in and out of your life. But he says that they will come into your life, but you'll have a new perspective on them. And you'll be able to live in the presence of a divine continuous awareness of Krishna in your life. And you'll be able to see things differently. And rather than seeing things as a judgment of myself, You'll allow everything to come into your life. How can I offer whatever's coming my way? My joys and my triumphs and my pains and my setbacks. I can offer it all to Krishna. Because at the end of the day, my only goal is to come closer to love. My goal isn't to somehow be this big, successful individual in the world, whatever that may mean to you. My goal is to come closer to love. And sometimes everything falling apart in my life cracks my heart open if I allow it to. And Krishna becomes my only refuge. And I open myself up to the beauty of inviting Krishna's love into my life, of recognizing that there's no other shelter in my life, and that supreme divine person. That's where the Gita ends and takes us. Sarva dharmam prityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papibyo mokshishyami masuchaha. Krishna mentions, just throw yourself at me. Make me your supreme shelter. And I will reciprocate with you. I will meet you there. I will meet you there. And it's a beautiful gift that we have for us. And life in many ways is just a series of instances and circumstances that are bringing us closer to that realization. So for myself, I'm walking away with, well, before I give my takeaway, let's turn to Kimberly. Kimberly's going to give us our takeaways, and then I'm going to have a closing thought of what I'm taking away and what I want to invite all of us to take away. Kimberly, what you got for us as our takeaways? We got Kimberly here as our Rapid Acharya, who gives us little nice takeaways to keep in our pocket. What you got, Kimberly?
All right. Detach, take yourself out of the center and make it about Krishna. Go from the negative to the neutral. Service can be simple and come closer to love.
Thank you. I love those. For me, what I'm walking away with and I want to offer to all of us is a new perspective on the struggles that I experience in life. And as hard as it can be sometimes to see my own struggles, whether it's interpersonal struggles, whether it's individual struggles, whether it's struggles in just life in general of things I'm trying to do in my career or achieve personally, see those struggles not as a judgment of my own self or my own shortcoming, but see it as a way in which gifts of Krishna to remind me that I'm never meant to do anything on my own. I'm not meant to live and walk life alone, but I'm meant to invite Krishna into every moment of my life. And sometimes when things seem to be going just fine, I forget. I forget so easily. And so thank you, Krishna, for not letting me forget, because what a travesty for me to just celebrate some small victory, some small little material gain that comes at the cost of forgetting Krishna. So don't let me hanker for the short-term small wins of the material world. Thank you for reminding me of the big picture and that what's truly of value can never be lost. And it's always there waiting for me. And it's always there waiting for you. So thank you so much for tuning in and give me the chance to share all of this and be with you guys. I'm really grateful for you. I love you tons. If you're a regular listener, God bless you, because we've been doing this for a while, and every day we just show up and we speak, and it's quite beautiful. And I'm waiting for the day when no one's going to show up, and it's just going to be like we reached our limit. We reached our limit, Dayal. 247 episodes was enough. You're just saying the same thing over and over. Yeah, we get it. Krishna loves us. Be Krishna conscious. I'm a spirit soul. Noted. Thank you. I got the sticky note on my mirror and I don't need this anymore. I've got sticky notes on my mirror. I don't need Spirit Matters anymore. So until that day comes, we're going to keep showing up and we're going to keep reminding each other. And as Ram Dass beautifully says, um, walking each other home. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. Love you. Take care. Be well and see you next time. Bye bye.